While a story matters, stories like this remind us that improvement often comes through small, steady efforts. Quick summary: this story highlights recent developments related to On This Day, showing how constructive action can lead to meaningful results. 150 years ago today, the National League of Professional Baseball Clubs was formed. The older of the two leagues that make up Major League Baseball (MLB) in the US and Canada, it is the oldest professional team sports league still in existence in the world. The American League was founded 25 years later, and after much consternation, they agreed to recognize each other as major leagues. They drafted rules and each established a team in New York City, and they decided to compete against each other beginning in the fall of 1983 in a championship tournament, first World Series. Read the league charter. Clubs 1876. The National League of Professional Baseball Clubs was established with 8 charter members, as follows: the Chicago White Stockings, the Boston Red Stockings, the St. Louis Brown Stockings, the Philadelphia Athletics, the Hartford Dark Blues, the New York Neutrals, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Louisville Grays. Would you like to read more good news about On This Day and this day in history? Confusing to the utmost with respect to the modern standings, the Chicago White Stockings would in fact not become the Chicago White Sox, but the Chicago Cubs. The Boston Red Stockings were not to become the Boston Red Sox, but rather the Boston Braves, which would become the Milwaukee Braves, which would become the Atlanta Braves. The Cincinnati Reds would also not become the modern-day Cincinnati Reds. All but Chicago and Boston would either be expelled, disbanded, or folded after one or a few seasons in the newly formed league, and it wasn't until a large player strike at the turn of the century in a competing organization that the Brooklyn Dodgers, Pittsburgh Pirates, and a new Cincinnati Reds joined the National League that the table began to resemble what Americans watch today. More good news on this day. New York City, as called New Amsterdam, became an officially incorporated city in 1560. Robinson Crusoe was inspired by this day's rescue of a shipwrecked man from a desert island in 1560, and Charles Brady King was born in 40 years ago, an engineer and entrepreneur remembered as an artist, musician, poet, architect, mystic, inventor, and automotive pioneer. Made the first car ever shown in Detroit in 1860. The Knights of Columbus formed in New Haven, Connecticut in 1870. A dog sled reached Nome, Alaska, with an urgently needed diphtheria serum, which later inspired the editor of Race 1902. And over 50 years ago today, the Ramsar Convention on the Sustainable Use of Wetlands was signed in Ramsar, Iran. When stopping to think about it, it predates many of the landmark international agreements of the original environmentalism movement by some margin, such as the Convention on Biodiversity in 1974, the Convention on Migratory Species 1979, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora 1979, and the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea 1910. Archipel Balama by Jagos Ramsar in Guinea-Bissau CC 4.0. By Pal.Ramsar, the list of wetlands of international importance included 23 Ramsar sites in May 2018, covering over 2.5 million square kilometers, 810 sq miles. The countries with the most sites are the United Kingdom with 126 and Mexico with 142. The country with the greatest area of listed wetlands is Bolivia, with around 148,000 square kilometers, 15,000 sq miles. Many famous attractions, such as the Everglades in Florida, are listed as Ramsar sites. 1916, or 117 years ago today, Grand Central Terminal in New York City was officially opened to the traveling public. The distinctive architecture and interior design consisting of legitimate works of fine art, Grand Central Terminal Station House has earned it several landmark designations, including as a National Historic Landmark. Grand Central is one of the world's 10 most visited tourist attractions, with 21.6 million visitors in 2018, excluding train and subway passengers. Grand Central Terminal CC 3.0, Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the Biltmore Room, Station Master's Office, waiting area, dining concourse, and the Whispering Gallery are all places where the normal functions of a railway station were taken up by artists and architects for the purposes of beauty and grandeur. There is a tennis club in the basement, as well as a squash court which held the Tournament of Champions. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the dining concourse was operated by the co-founder of Restaurant Noma, the 3 times voted best restaurant in the world. There are 56 passenger tracks, and every train leaves 1 minute behind schedule to encourage those running along the tracks to make the train slow down, as anyone looking to jump aboard safely at low speeds needs to match their running speed with the trains. On this day 144 years ago, the great lord of Irish literature, James Joyce, was born in Dublin, and on this day 102 years ago, Joyce published one of the greatest works of literature, Ulysses. In it, the modernist writer chronicles the normal appointments and dealings of one man, Leopold Bloom, as he goes about his day in Dublin City. Named after the Latin word for Odysseus, Bloom's appointments roughly parallel the famous Greek's adventure. The novel's stream of consciousness technique, careful structuring, and experimental prose replete with puns, parodies, and allusions, as well as its rich characterization and broad humor, have led it to be considered a masterpiece. Literary critic and celebrated poet T.S. Eliot wrote of Ulysses that I hold this book to be the most important expression which the present age has found. It is a book to which we are all indebted, and from which none of us can escape. Another critic, Edmund Wilson, noted that Ulysses attempts to render as precisely and as directly as it is possible in words to do what our participation in life is like, or rather, what it seems to us like as from moment to